Hello, everyone. This is Mary Kurek with Frontrunners Innovate, and we have a couple of familiar faces and then one that is new today. So this episode, we are getting to know Secretary General Michael Kintu, and we're going to find out a little bit more about the fund that he is working on in Africa, the Development Fund. And we're going to find out a little bit more right off the bat about Michael Rowan, who is with Climate Prosperity Enterprise Solutions as the Executive VP of Business Development. And wow, what a history of working with international presidents, global strategic programs and whatnot. Michael, we'll look forward to hearing more from you about that. And then Dr. TobyMalichi, the Honorable Dr. TobyMalichi, who we call lovingly our business diplomat, our international business diplomat, who operates Malichi Worldwide Enterprises and concentrates on international trade, and says, I believe, serving under your 6th White House administration for international commerce. So we appreciate the two of you being here to co-host today. So I'm going to start with you, Michael. Why don't you share a little bit about yourself and your role at Climate Prosperity Enterprise Solutions?
Hi, I'm Michael Rowan, and nice to meet you, Michael Kintu. This is an interesting topic. I have been working for about 50 years on development in different kinds of ways. I wound up in political campaigns as a researcher and communications generalist, I would say, a strategist in political campaigns. And I got involved in about 40 of those political campaigns in the late 60s and 70s and early 80s. And then got into international work on political campaigns, presidential campaigns, and mostly for development of the country, which was the content of the campaigns we were doing. So I've been involved in now 18 different countries now on the presidential level on dealing with development kinds of problems. From the strategic and communications point of view. In Climate Prosperity Enterprise Solutions with my partner, Ambassador Dick Sweat, what we have done is we have developed a private sector funded IT company information technology backed basic smart farm data center solar power community development enterprise systems owned by and operated by the base of the population we're going into, which are the rural areas of the poorest parts of Africa. Sudan, South Sudan, Malawi, Nigeria are on the line, also now El Salvador. And we have developed a platform also, the capacity for the utilization of the best technology in construction for saving money and energy and meeting the challenges of climate change. And then with the Sustainable Solar Community Development Project, we have it's a private sector, is essentially a private sector investment program that reduces risk in the foreign country through a mechanism I'll talk to you about, which is basically, creating a safe enterprise, free trade zone kind of thing, so that the risk is brought down. So it's complicated and so on, but I'm sure you're working with too, and we'll get to it. But so we're just about to start some of these. Go ahead, Toby.
Great. Well, and the Honorable Dr. TobyMalichi, who Michael knows very well because he serves on the board there as an advisor with Climate Prosperity Enterprise Solutions. And by the way, Michael, you're in New York, right? You're established in New York yourself.
Yes, I'm in New York.
And Dr. Toby's in Indiana. So I just want to get that straight. We've got the Secretary General's in Nairobi, I believe. And so Dr. Toby, you want to share just a little bit about you and your enterprise?
Well, I don't want to bore you, Mr. Secretary General. I want to hear you. I'm Dr. TobyMalichi. I'm founding executive chairman and global head of development, investment, and diplomacy for Malichi Group worldwide. We're in over 70 countries around the world. We're known for facilitating cross-border trade investment deals. We've been in business a little over 41 years. I founded the company over 41 years ago. I came out of General Motors Corporation. I also own and operate a global chamber in Indianapolis and Indiana, which are in over 195 countries on 6 continents and on 525 regional markets. We have offices in Dubai, Singapore, China, London, with strategic partnerships in India, and I have an office in Africa. We work on West Africa and South Africa. Through the White House, I've been blessed this is my 6th consecutive White House administration. I'm advisor to the administration on trade, and I represent Indiana. I'm the longest serving Black man in America with 34 years with this, and I'm going to do another 2, give me 36, and we'll complete that out. My expertise is also working with SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, and as a former board directors member of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, I've done a lot on free trade agreements to the White House administrations, and actually know a lot somewhat about ECOWAS and in East Africa. We also have partners who are involved in trade investment, looking for opportunities to invest in Africa as one of our starting places. But and Mary and I have talked about this, find the threshold we can do that. Our goal as a global business diplomat is to give rise to all people and improve the quality of life of all people. And with that, I'll stop. I got my hands in a few other things, but I was invited to speak at this past United Nations, the 77th, on trade investment for Africa. And then the White House invited me to speak at the President's Leadership Summit, U.S. Africa Leadership Summit this past December. So I have a heart for Africa, to say the least. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana. I also have an office here in Washington, D.C., and it's just an honor to get to know you, to speak with you, and see my good friend, Michael Rowan, which I'm a partner in their great endeavor. Michael's just an awesome guy. And I look forward to doing deep dives and hear what you have to say. And I turn back over to the one and only and the great person I call a gift to all of us is Mary Curry. And my favorite words are, Mr. Secretary General, is have a successful day and think globally.
I love that. Well, now we are going to get to know a little bit about His Excellency Michael Kintu. And so, Michael, if you would share a little bit about your background and what brought you into the work you're doing, and then let's talk a little bit about what it is the fund is all about, the genesis of it, and what programs that you're doing. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity to share with you. Just a little background about myself. I was born in 1991, 5th of May, 1991. I think I'm the oldest here.
Right.
So that's a joke. Well, yeah. I joined this World Fund for Development and Planning on the July of 2018. And some of the reasons as to why I was one of the few people who joined this organization was that there was a gap between the boys and the girls who attend school. And the reason as to why there was a fewer number of girls attending school during this period was that most of the girls could drop out of school for reasons known as per se early pregnancies, menstrual hygiene, reasons affiliated to menstruation. Most of these girls did not have materials or sanitary kits that they can use during this period. For someone who is in the US or Europe, it may not give you the clear picture of what I'm trying to talk about, but at least you can imagine teenage girls going to school during their monthly periods, and they cannot afford sanitary towels. What is the outcome of this? They end up getting embarrassed. They end up getting their clothes soiled and all that stuff. So what happens if one is embarrassed, or if one gets into this situation and they don't have the right materials to use, they're going to be at the end of the day, the next day they may not show up at school. So part of this, after you are ashamed, after you've been embarrassed, there's no way you're going to come the next day when your periods are done. At the end of it all, they end up dropping out of school. And what happens after that? They're married off. Some of these communities that are quite far from the cities, in rural areas, you find that these girls end up being married off by their family members, by their parents, by distant relatives, because now that's the only thing they can benefit from them, besides that they've dropped out of school. So we introduced the Her Club initiative, and this was basically to cater for these girls, to provide sanitary towels to the teenage girls in order to enable them attend school, in order to enable them stay in school and graduate, as compared to their counterparts, who are the boys, who seem not to be having any challenges. And that's why we're having a bigger percentage of boys who are into medicine, engineering, and all those other professional jobs, as compared to the girls. Because the girls have been, I won't call it humiliated, but they've been underlooked. When you look at the African setting and tradition, they come in a bit later. Even in affairs of inheritance, affairs of family, when let's say they're dividing the inheritance for the family. So you realize that these girls come in later. In some families, they don't give them inheritance. So these are some of the challenges we wanted to address. Equality. We wanted to make sure that a girl child stays in school and has all the materials, all the necessities they have. Because in this initiative, besides the sanitary towels, this comes along with the scholastic materials, because we realized still some girls will go ahead to be with men and other teenage boys just to get this small money to buy the geometry set, to buy the pencils, to buy the pens and the books that cannot be provided by their families. So that is the baseline as to why I was able to join World Fund for Development and Planning. I presented this proposal, and it was approved, and it came on board, and it worked successfully. Automatically, I had to get a good position in the organization in order to continue with this initiative. And after that, different initiatives have been coming in. We have the clean water technology that we have adopted from the United States, and we get the water generators from one of the companies in the United States. So these machines absorb water from the air, like thin air. They pull out this air, and through this air, there's a bit of moisture. So out of this moisture they pull out the water, and then they release the air. So automatically, you don't need any water source. As long as you have the machine and it has a source of power, it's able to produce clean drinking water, whereby you don't need to boil the water. You just need to bring your cup or your bottle, collect the water. So we planted these machines in different schools that are unable to afford clean drinking water. Same as markets and community centers where people gather so that they can have access to clean drinking water. And this helps us to at least reduce the level at which the diseases are spreading. Take an example of cholera, bilharzia, such of diseases. We've observed that there's been a reduction in the cases of such diseases. More so, we've been distributing mosquito nets to areas of that have this. There's some communities that you will never find malaria because of the climate. Because normally these mosquitoes will lay their eggs in places that have that are a bit warm. Take an example, maybe for Kampala, Uganda. Yeah, I would say Uganda. For Nairobi or for Kenya, it's a few of the areas because some places are a bit cold, others a bit warm. So because of this, you realize that there are more cases of malaria in Uganda as compared to Kenya. Though also Kenya has some areas that are warm, like at the coast and other areas around that have serious cases of malaria. So that is the reason we realized that still the school absenteeism was because of malaria, children falling sick, their parents were falling sick, and they can't afford to go to work to raise the tuition that is required. So our main focus was to how are we enabling a transformation in communities, and the only way is to reduce the levels of illiteracy through education, through supporting education. And through this, we've also managed to put up trucks that are equipped with computer systems, that are equipped with laptops, internet sources, so that these children in areas that where they can't afford to have a computer to study. So we make sure that these trucks move to centers or to schools at a given date. And then we have instructors that take these children through the basic knowledge of a computer from the different accessories, from the different, let's say this is the monitor, this is the CPU, this is the mouse, this is how it works. Then we go to the next level as well of they start now touching the devices and how do they use the devices, Microsoft, the basic, like the basic applications that they can use with, so that we give them this knowledge and they're able to compete with their counterparts who are in the cities and the capitals in the other developed parts of the country. So those are some of the projects that we've been implementing. As well, we've been empowering women in communities with small capital to start, because normally we've observed that in communities in Africa, most of the children are taken care of by the women. The men have not all the men, but in some communities, their role is to be fathers biologically, but they don't play the roles of the father, like the role a father would have played. A few parents are still responsible, but in those other areas where education had not sunk in and the father did not did not go maybe past high school, they will not see the value of education. So it is very hard for that parent to convince them to pay tuition for their children. And we've seen that women taking up the roles of men, looking for tuition, preparing dinner for their children. So we have decided to empower the women with the small enterprising investment into their small business. Take an example, a woman, a lady is selling vegetables, I'll say tomatoes, onions beside the street, and they need an extra, I would say $200. It would make sense to them to add into their business, $500 or $100, depending on the business that they're doing. Others are into preparing or making small snacks that can be sold to schools and other institutions. So we empower them, give them some more money that they can put into these small businesses, so that if she was making $100 of profit a month, at least we can enable her make $200 or $250 because of she has added into the production that she was making before. if she was making, okay, let's say, small, I would say pancakes of maybe about 50 pieces a day, we empower her to make sure that at least she's making something like 150 pieces that can enable her raise the income that she was getting before. So such projects have enabled us to transform the communities. We've collaborated with government to supply electricity to rural areas. We've collaborated with government to build schools and institutions, because our goal is to see that these people are able to provide for themselves tomorrow, and without an advantage, because education is the first advantage. Before you start applying for a job or anything, you must qualify for the job. So, and we are not sure whether we will be able to provide for them in the next 25 years. So the only investment we can do can be education, and also empowering them through the small businesses that they're doing. And in conclusion, also, we are having the universal basic income. This is a small amount of money that is coming to each and every household in order to enable them buy medicine, buy small grocery for their family as they're waiting for the jobs to come in. There are some families where you find they have no formal employment in the household. The father goes out to look here and there. There's no official job that he has gone to do. The mother also goes out to hunt to see if they can get some money, $100 or $10 for dinner. So such families were affected more during the pandemic. So what we decided, we were like, okay, if we have $20,000 or $100,000, how do we split this money into these families? Because we don't know what they want. You may decide to buy for them pizza and they prefer to buy flour. So we had to give them an advantage, at least to make choices, because you may send them flour and they have plenty of flour. Maybe they need sugar, maybe they need salt. So out of these $100, at least they can say, okay, this is what we needed. We gave them alternatives, so that you may not have to give them paracetamol. Maybe they needed some other drug for their children, but because they had nothing to do, this is what we provided. They were restricted. So you find someone now will go and sell the salt or the sugar you gave to them in order to buy medicine, and yet we would have given them $100 to buy what they feel they need or what is needed in the household, other than giving them suggesting for them or giving to them what we feel they need, which may not be what is needed at that current time. So those are the few projects that we have been doing around East Africa and other parts of Africa. We are in 34 countries around the world, and we are still counting. I don't know whether I still have enough time, but I'll get back to you.
That's all right. Yeah, we have a hard stop, or at least I do, about 10 till. But that was really good information. I do have a couple of questions, but I do want to give time to Michael and Toby, Dr. Toby, to ask some things. Michael, do you have a question or a comment?
Well, yeah, I just, my only observation on this is like all of these projects are great, and it's great to hear the on the ground, pragmatic, like real time, impacting people directly. But one of the problems that all the funds have, is what is sustainable? What is sustainable? If the only project that really is sustainable, it seems to me, is the women in the workforce. Because you give women small capital for their small business, or one solar panel for the battery of their phone, you can double or triple their income. Those kinds of things are really, really good. And I'm wondering if he's thinking about that in what does he think about sustainability of these things? Because you start giving things away to people, and then you need more and more money that you need to give them. It's kind of like the World Food Program, where you're importing food from the rest of the world into Africa, which has the 60% of the arable land on the planet unused. It's still there. It's in Africa and so on. They could feed themselves if we found a way to do that. It's one of the things that we're trying to do, of course. But if his idea about sustainability, I'd love to hear.
Michael?
All right. In regards to sustainability, number one, with the Hack Club initiative, we have made sure that we train these girls to be able to make their own sanitary towels that will not endanger them, that will not make them sick. And then we train them, how do you clean it? How do you, we don't want to be giving you this every other month. We don't have that capacity because the numbers are growing every other year. Every other year, millions of children are becoming teenagers, are joining adolescent. So we need to really make it sustainable. And how do we enable you to help the one who has just got into this stage of becoming a teenager and menstruation? So we train these children, the girls, also to become leaders, to assist the young ones who have just joined this stage, to advise them, to counsel them. When you see these signs, then you come to a senior lady teacher to advise you. And also we provide for them the raw materials to enable them to make their own towels, as well as a few people have approached us with there's a small cup that is called the menstrual hygiene cup, and this cup goes to up to 5 years. So it's made out of silicone. So like the one they use to do body implants and stuff of that, things of that kind. So what this menstrual cup does, is like when you calculate the amount of money, let's say $2 you're going to give to every girl per month, you give them a menstrual cup that they're going to use for 5 years or even after school. But the challenge is the adoptability and how it is being used. How do you the insertion and all those procedures? It's not something that is that you put on your clothes. Like I think you know the procedures, but it's something that is incited. So some of the cultures and some people are like, no, I think this is going to break the virginity. No, we can't do this. No, this. So there's so many things that have to be done in the process of innovation in order to see that these communities are able to sustain themselves. So with that, we are trying to see that we have an alternative that can help us assist one girl, and that the only aid or the only assistance that we are able to give at least one kit to every girl, and that's all they need for the rest of their high school life or primary school life. But the adoptability is also a problem. However much there are new systems and new technologies, you need also to look at able to adopt the systems that we are trying to put in place. Because, for example, the water gene machines that we put in these areas, they need solar systems, and they need to be serviced as well. So however much we provided a machine that is going to serve for a longer time, still it needs a system, or it needs servicing, it needs maintenance. That's why we are training the local leaders to also be involved. We are not going to do 100% of the work. You also have to be involved and engage and supervise this machine and provide security. Someone may be in need of this machine more than the community, which is a bit selfish. Maybe somebody needs a piece of it. Maybe somebody comes and takes away the panel. So all these things, when a machine is picked up by someone, then that means you've done nothing. You have to replace it with a new one. So we are trying to adopt to these sustainable. That's why we're also trying to see that instead of feeding the schools that have land, we are able to provide them with the seeds so that they can hire someone to do the agriculture for them, to do the planting for the food for them. Because most of the schools that don't have food, you realize they have more land. So they just need a system, they just need new skills to enable them to grow their own food, other than providing them with food every other day.
Right.
But we are observing and trying to see that we have mechanisms of sustainability.
Yes. Okay.
The challenge. Dr. Toby, you have any questions or comments?
Yes, outstanding work that you're doing, and I see the many challenges, not being on ground, but I see the many challenges you're up against. As a father of 3 daughters, I understand fully the embarrassment of a sanitary towel, of not having it, and what that means, and not having a support system to support them when that period does come about. And I can see, I've seen where it impacts their self-esteem, their self-confidence, and their self-image as to who they are. And so I applaud you, on that effort, and continue on. My big question is that you're doing so many great things. I never heard about a truck with the computers on it to travel around to the schools and teach the kids about computers and Microsoft and the Microsoft tools. Given that here in America, we take all those things just for granted. And here you have young, bright minds that want to learn and that want to grow, and they're hungry for knowledge. And so I applaud you on that. And I think we can take that page and bring it back here to America. One who is a serial entrepreneur, owns businesses. Um, I'm curious on the women, and you support women, because I was raised by women, so I understand exactly what you're saying. Um, Help them to start micro enterprises, and you give them access to capital to maintain those micro enterprises, as the mothers who look after the kids. And some of these women from around the world in Africa really grow some pretty good businesses just based on very humble beginnings, as you're providing right there. And um, I'm always impressed when I hear that. Those are the kind of things we're looking to help. And then two, given the household a stipend, if you will, $100 for enough income to buy medicine, things they need in the household. Um, you need more dollars to sustain these things. I know, as Michael was talking about, and my question is that the men seem to drop out at an early age, or maybe they go on to college school, they leave. But what happens to the men that are left back? Do you have a problem with corruption, and the men finding their path in terms of a micro enterprise? Do you have are your thought pattern as well for the men to help them find their path, their way, on what I call self-management skills? Self-esteem, self-confidence, self-image, self-motivation, to teach them how to set goals themselves. And I've seen where when that element is missing from society, crime increases, corruption increases, abuse increases, theft increases. And so, is there a thought pattern, a plan that you have in mind to eventually, address the men as well? I know you can only do so much, and I just think about some of the things that we do, and I've been personally involved in. Um, I'm just curious what happens to the men.
Oh, well, thank you very much for
Michael, you're halfway freezing up. So yeah, give it a second.
Some of the challenges that are faced in communities of I've seen UN men, but I've seen UN women. Oh, sure. Is it much better now?
Yeah. It's a bit better, but you're frozen. We can hear you, but your video is frozen.
Okay. Oh, sure. I don't know what happened. Is it much better now?
We can. Okay, I think so. Go ahead.
Well, like I said, it's hard to find the UN men, or it's hard to find that men are considered to be vulnerable as well, but community or society doesn't embrace that. Normally, we think men are lions, men can do it on their own. So it's very hard to find someone sympathizing with a man. So we think by nature, which is supposed to be true, but at times economic challenges cannot really afford, because the Bible says that we are the heads and not the tails. I don't know whether it's in the right context, but yes. But anyway, to put it right, we have put up a boys mentorship program because we realize men are a bit aggressive. You cannot tame them when they're grown, but which is women are a bit flexible. So it's better to train them and give them these life skills when they're still young. And also some of the challenges that we are facing with domestic violence and all these is the community where these men have grown, where they've been raised. If they've seen their father beating their mother, obviously they'll beat their wife because it's something that is typical. It's something they've seen around for some time. And some of the things that we learn are the things we get from the ages of 9 to 12. You never forget these experiences. And most of these experiences are the things that follow us throughout our lives. So you realize if a young boy used to see their mother being beaten, this thing is still on their mind, or it's still with them up to now. And if they happen to get any challenges in their marriages, in their relationship, they know the right answer to tame someone is to beat them up, which is not right. So we are trying to also to put up initiatives that empower men, because we realize the men are also vulnerable at some point, which the community, which the world will not realize. Most of the cases with the United Nations Human Rights Commission are for women being maybe their rights being violated, being beaten up. So but you realize when you go down to the community, there are men who are beaten up by women. But even if a man is beaten up by a woman or tortured, they won't come up because they will seem weak, they will seem vulnerable, and they won't even say this to their community groups, maybe friends or family, because the response will be like, how can a woman treat you this way? But now we realize that when we empower only the women, and the women get this financial empowerment, now I would say they will no longer submit to the men the way they are supposed to, like a man submits, like a woman submits to their husband, because now they're economically empowered. So there's this thing that comes, I can buy this of my own, I can do this for my own. So the men also have come back to us, and they're like, you gave this lady money, you financed the businesses. So now she's no longer listening to me. She's no longer. So now we live the empowerment bit. Now we go to the social life of sitting them down and empowering them and encouraging them and teaching them that, these are just, this is just money. You can sit together and, settle things out. Because now it becomes like a tit for tat. The lady will be like, no, this man used to have a lot of money and he treated me this way. So now I have the money. So the men will be like, but it's you, it's your organization that empowered this lady. She was okay with the small money, but now she doubled. So what she talked about, it really has to be put into consideration. Though we haven't given it more attention, but it really needs to be given attention. The men also need to be empowered, because most of the men, that's why they can't provide for their families, is they've not been empowered. They've not been helped out. I know more than 100 organizations that help women to support them in their businesses or support them in the day-to-day life, fight for them in courts, but I don't know any organization that helps the men. That is where the challenge is. For sure, that is a big concern. That is something that we should concentrate on, to see that also the men, maybe they can be good fathers, but because no one seems to care, then they can't be helped. They can't help their families as well. So that is something that I've taken note of. Thank you for that concern, and I'll put it in consideration to see that also the men are part.
Quality loop, yeah, is everybody, right?
Yeah.
So I like that. I wanted to kind of get back to. Go ahead, Dr. Toby.
Thank you, Secretary General. As I said, I was raised by women, and the things you talked about, were personal. What you just said, and I thank you for that. And I used to go with my mother to clean toilets, just so she could feed us and scrub floors. So I have 3 daughters. So thank you, sir, for the great work you're doing.
Fantastic. I didn't even know that about you. 3 daughters. Okay. That's a lot. I wanted to get back to some details about the fund, if you will. So the relationship with, is there a relationship that's tied, it looks like I'm seeing it behind you, with the United Nations, where the money comes from for all the programs that you get to do. And lastly, where do you think you're headed in the rest of this year with some of the programs that you're doing? Is there something new, or is there what kind of a direction do you think that you're heading in?
Very good.
Thank you for that. Well, some of the funds or the monies, I would say, that we use for these projects, one, they come from different companies from different countries that we partner with, that decide to work with us. And also companies that manufacture the products that we use. For example, maybe a company that makes the water generators, the atmospheric water generators, we can come to, we can sign an MOU with these companies, and we'll be like, okay, we need 100 or 1,000 machines, but these machines are not for sale, they're going for humanitarian work. How much are you giving us per machine? What is the cost? Given that we are not going to use these machines, we are not going to resell these machines. These machines are going to help out the community. So how much are you giving us? I mean, at what cost per machine? So we are able to come to a discounted price to enable us to buy these machines. And upon that, before we can say we need 100 machines, how much are you giving to us? Are you offering us any machines, or what is your offer? And they'll be like, okay, we're buying you're buying 100 machines, we're going to give you 150 machines. And then we go back to some of these companies that have been giving us aid from China, Belgium, United States. And we are like, hey, look, this is the deal. We are planning to buy 100 machines, but this company is offering to give us 150 machines. And then if the company agrees with that, they'll say, okay, we'll give you 50% of 100 machines. We'll give you the money for the 50. For the 50%. Yeah. So that is how we are able. At times we run campaigns to fundraise these monies through our websites, through different funding platforms. We talk to banks. We talk to people in the corporate world. A dollar or two makes more sense down here in Africa. So if I get $100 or if I get $200, it makes much more sense. Yes, it can buy me a brand new vehicle, but it can help hundreds and hundreds of people down there to have breakfast or to have dinner on their tables. So we decided to concentrate not on the bigger figure, but small of big is more than looking for the a bigger portion altogether. So we realize that even communities in Africa, there are people who are well off in cities like Kampala, Nairobi, and all the other cities, people who are able to make a turnover of more than $1 million or even less, but they can offer to give us $100 a month from their companies, from their small businesses, and this is something that we embrace with open hands. We are like, okay, thank you. At least we are able to feed 100 families or 2 families, or we even suggest how many families are you able to feed. We need $10 for dinner for this family. This lady needs to start a business. How many businesses are you able to support? So you are able to get maybe $1,000 from one individual, $100 from another. So the collection, this collective mobilization, you are able to raise $2 million from a community, a smaller African setting, because of what you've done. Because normally people want to see, what have you done?
Mhm.
Do you have the results? That's when or if they've seen your badge or your logo somewhere on a certain project, they'll be like, oh, so you are the guys who planted this water source here. You are the guys who put up this water reservoir in this area. Okay, I'll give you $50. I'll give you $10. So the more we present to them and show them our projections, what we've done and what we expect to do, the number keeps growing every other day, because we realize it will be very hard to raise $1 million from an individual, from one organization. But if we have a team of donors, let's say 2 million, we've managed to raise 2 million people, we can raise more than $2 million, maybe $20 million, depending on the commitments. So we are not fixed to a particular organization or a particular group of people. Whoever is willing to come on board with the small thing that they have, it makes much more sense.
Okay.
And also different organizations have been coming on board supporting us, different intergovernmental organizations, because at times they identify that the cause or what they want to do or what they want to implement, we have already implemented. All they have to do is to invest in more money or to give us more money so that we continue with that project. Other than them coming on ground and doing the project plan and doing the surveys, we have all the paperwork. So why not give us this money and then we just beef up this project instead of starting from scratch, doing the same project.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have small organizations coming up every other day, and yet there are big organizations that have done what they want to do already. So it's easier to do a partnership other than start over again, because someone has the research already. They know which soil is better for which crop. So you don't need to go back and take the soil samples and then do the same procedure that was done 10 years ago. Maybe if you want to upgrade the data, that is different.
Well,
Yes.
I have to say, yeah, I'm sorry, Secretary General. We're sort of at the end of the time frame here, but I think I have learned a lot. I've taken like 3 pages of notes, and I was really interested in several of the projects that you have going on and how you're doing them, how you're working that. So thank you for sharing a bit about that with the partnerships piece at the end. So it seems like to me that is really where you're at, is wanting and needing more partners and expanding that, all the programs through the end of this year. So we'll assume that that's where everything's going to go. I wanted to give our co-host just a final word, if they'd like this to share, and before we close it out. So Michael Rowan, would you like to share?
I think that Michael Kintu is a great resource for the people of Africa, and your optimism, Michael, in the face of the challenge and the and the tools is great, but you're facing it with with courage, and I really appreciate that. It's heroic.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Dr. Toby.
Yes, Mr. Secretary General, your outstanding leadership and global body of work is duly noted. I believe God makes a way out of no way, and He uses certain people to make that path. And I know He has chosen you to do so. So continue on your path. Anything we can do to help, please let us know. And just what a privilege! What a privilege that Mary has bought, and my good friend and colleague Michael Rowan to get to speak with you. And I truly thank you for the rich privilege of your time, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Toby.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is great, guys. Thank you so much, everybody, for being on today, spending a little bit of time with us so that we can get to know yet another opportunity out there that's doing something really wonderful for areas of Africa. And I feel like you're expanding even beyond the countries that you shared with us, Michael. So we thank you for that. We are all about economic development and trade and impact. So as Dr. Toby said, if there's something that we can do to be of some help, we're all ears for you. So let us all consider that this is the beginning of some good relationships and a little bit of networking. So I'm going to ask everybody to stay on for just a second. I'm going to say goodbye to everyone else who may be watching on YouTube or one of our other channels. This is a podcast, so wherever there are podcasts that you listen to, you can find it there, whether it's Spotify or Apple, any of those. And you can find us at www.frontrunnersinnovate.com, where you get some bio information and how to connect with these individuals that you just heard from today. So I want to say thanks again, everybody, and thanks for watching. And, the world needs more front runners just like these. So now that you've heard the interview, exactly what did you hear? We tell our business development students that there are at least 3 opportunities in every introductory business call. You probably are hearing them, but not really processing them as the opportunities they could represent for you. So here are the ones that I heard in this interview. Number 1, you may have heard Dr. TobyMalichi, who was one of our co-hosts for this interview, asking our interviewee, His Excellency Michael Kintu, if the World Fund for Development and Planning has programs for men. We had a lot of conversation about programs for women. This was specific about men. So Mr. Kintu talked about the importance of helping to raise boys to be good fathers and confident, supportive family men. He said he'd take Dr. Toby's suggestion to heart, which made me think there's an opportunity here for anyone who has developed a good program for men to step forward and create a partnership with this organization. So number 2, Mr. Kintu talked about how a program to supply sanitary kits for girls was his starting point, helped him move into the work he's doing now with the World Fund for Development and Planning in East Africa. He really wanted to continue that program. So we know of at least 2 or 3 partners right here at Frontrunners that could help in his endeavors. Matching an enterprise solution with a nonprofit organization who could maybe fund a purchase of these items would be ideal. Now, this is a business opportunity with impact all over it. Number 3, Mr. Kintu also mentioned how they were creating a PPP to enable the purchase of clean water generators, indicating that they run on solar and require some maintenance, which prompts them to identify local leaders to learn how to service them and to ensure the security of the machines. So happens that we have a solution, that could probably help him with all the issues he's mentioned around these generators. And perhaps an agreement with an African trial partner might be in order. So as we think about that, maybe you would consider other programs that they are investing money in, seeds so that schools can grow their own food, mosquito nets, and small enterprise grants for women entrepreneurs. So can you identify an opportunity to develop a partnership here? So that's it for us. If you're interested in learning more about business development or partnering with us, be sure to reach out. And until the next time, just know the world needs more front runners like you. Thanks. Bye-bye.